Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a video on the newest and latest Nemesis monster, Faraday. Now the last video I did, I had to do it in a rush, but this time I had the whole day to think about it. I'm prepared, I have stats, I have number, and I hope this video really helps you guys decide which monster to get, if any of them. And so let's jump right into it. There are three different versions. You can get the Thunder version, which is the cheapest version, the base version, Faraday the Electrolyzer. You can get the Earth version, Faraday the Discharger, and then you can get the Dark version, Faraday the Obscure, both of which cost about 50% more than the base version, the Electrolyzer. So with that being said, the strongest of all the Faradays is Faraday the Obscure, who has a power of 3663. And then following closely behind in second place is Faraday the Discharger with a power of 3652. And then in last place is the base version, the Electrolyzer, with a power of 3542. And so the first thing I want to say is that all of them are quite powerful. Any monster with a power over 3500 is extremely good. Next up in terms of life, Faraday the Discharger has the highest life with 35,588, followed by the Obscure with a life of 34,985, and then once again in last place is the Electrolyzer with a life of 34,080. So again, they all have a really high life, they all have a really high power, and then as for their speed, and one thing about this monster is that the speed stat does not matter. So they're not even close to being some of the fastest in their own element. The Obscure has a speed of 3454, the Discharger has a speed of 3432, and then the Electrolyzer has a speed of 3399. Again, the speed stat doesn't matter. All you need to know is that they have an extremely high life and an extremely high power stat. And the one thing I will say about this specific Nemesis monster is that even the base version, the $20 version, or at least it's 20 in my currency, but just the cheapest version, it's an extremely good monster. That if you don't want to fork over the extra 50%, that's fine. You get yourself the cheapest version and you have a really great monster. But like I said, this video is going to be me doing my best to help you guys decide which monster to purchase. And so as of right now, what I've kind of come to the conclusion of is that, like, at the very basic sense, if you want a monster specifically to counter Xyla and VoltaiK, your best bet is to go with the Earth monster. He honestly fulfills that role the best. If you want a monster to counter churn transferring monsters, which includes monsters like Demise, like the Dark Nemesis monster Samael, like Metalisha, like Cloud, anyone that can give another monster an extra churn, I kind of feel like the Thunder version can handle that the best, while the Earth version can also handle it, but not to the same degree. And the reason with that is that the Earth version actually has a stun skill, whereas the Thunder version has a total blind skill. And currently no one in the game is immune to total blind, while on the other hand there's quite a handful of monsters that are immune to stun, which includes monsters with the immune to stun trait, the celestial trait, and even the mountain trait. So just with those regards, I kind of feel like churn transferring monsters, if you want a monster specifically to handle that, Electrolyzer does it the best because of total blind. So for example, Sammy gives an extra churn to someone like, say, the Nemesis monster VoltaiK. You can total blind VoltaiK and he's not going to be able to touch you. But with the Discharger, you wouldn't be able to do that because VoltaiK is immune to stun. But if the enemy was to use Sammy to churn transfer into Xyla or Volt, well then you want the Discharger because he can easily take them out in one hit. So it really depends what you're going for, right? So the Earth version, he's better to taking out Xyla and Volt. The Thunder version, I think overall he's just better at dealing with churn transfer monsters. If it's not against Xyla or Volt, he can still do okay against Xyla and Volt, but not to the same degree that the Earth version can do. And then the Dark version, unfortunately he's not there to deny. He doesn't have a total blind, he doesn't have a stun, he doesn't have some form of denial. What he does have is a lot of DLTs. So this monster, I mentioned it in my earlier video, he's really geared more towards elite players that have to deal with a lot of really high life monsters, you know, really tanky monsters. When a monster gets to 130, their life stat increases immensely. And then you add a level 10 life rune, and then with the relics and everything, you really want DLTs. This monster can give poison and bleed, he can also give sunburn. That is a lot of DLT damage. Now that's not to say he's foolproof, because the thing is, like in player versus player, when you're playing top opponents, let me refresh, you'll see that you'll tend to fight a lot of Nemesis monsters. This isn't the best example, but just going through them. Zyron, for example, has one of those traits where I think it's like 30% less likely to land an effect against her. VoltaiK has Harden, General Thetis has Tough, Kai the Eradicator has Bulwark, 50% chance not to land something against him. General Tomb has Tough. Let's see what else we get when we refresh. There it is, Zyron again, Nadeo, both of those monsters, like 30% chance to not land something against him. And then General Tomb again, once again he has the Tough trait. But yeah, there's times when all of my opponents are like 3 Nemesis monsters. Sammy, Lum, and a VIP monster, that's 3 monsters with Bulwark, or just 3 Nemesis monsters. So you can't always rely on DLT, but that is really what I think the Obscure is meant for. If you want a monster that can deal crazy amount of DLTs to take on those tanky, high life monsters, he's the one for you. and so it really depends on your own specific purpose. Do you want a monster that can apply DLTs? Get Faraday the Obscure. Do you want a monster specifically for Xyla and Volts, and also any other Thunder monster? Get the Discharger. Do you want a monster to deal with just a handful of turn transfer monsters? Get the Electrolyzer. Now again, the Earth one, he can also deal with turn transfer monsters, but just not to the same degree that the Electrolyzer can in my opinion. And not to mention there's also a price discrepancy, $20 to $30 in my currency, so you have to decide that for yourself. Now I'm going to be moving on to Monster Wiki and talking more in depth about each individual skills and possible rune setups, as well as actual damage calculation. And first we're going to talk about countering VoltaiK and Xyla, and specifically I'm going to talk about VoltaiK because I feel that more people have access to VoltaiK than they do to Xyla, because obviously Xyla is a VIP monster, which means in order to have her you would have to actually pay for her. But anyhow, also with VoltaiK is he actually has 4 extra turn skills, which means on defense if he gets a turn in, you're as good as dead if he doesn't use his ultimate. Whereas Xyla, she only has 3 extra turn skills, so there's a chance the AI messes up and maybe she's not that big of a threat. So we're going to speak about VoltaiK specifically, but know that most of this does apply to Xyla. So first you need to know how much life VoltaiK has. At level 100 he has 24k life. At level 105 he has 26, almost 27k life. At level 110 he has almost 30k life. At level 115 he has 32k life. At level 120 he has 35k life. And then lastly, when he's all ranked up at 130 he has 41k life. And so he has a lot of life, especially when he's ranked up. And if you're going up against a long-term player, if you're going against some really tough opponents, then it's very likely you're probably going to be facing a 130 VoltaiK, probably with some really high level runes, probably usually running a stamina rune, a strength rune, and a team speed or an individual speed rune. And so with that knowledge we can talk about Faraday the Discharger, the Earth version, and how much damage he can deal against a VoltaiK. So first of all, once again he has a power of 3652, and scrolling down he has Earth based attacks which give him an elemental advantage over thunder attacks, and the strongest attack he can do is Mud Whip, which deals 70 damage. Now let's assume that most players aren't going to be able to rank him up right away. So for now I'm going to stick with skills group 2 and skills group 3. In skills group 2 you have a skill called Gravel Strap, which applies quicksand. It deals 40 earth based damage to all of the enemy monsters, okay? So let's just say that the enemy VoltaiK goes, and then you interrupt them with your anticipation trait. Oh, by the way, just for anyone watching this that maybe isn't aware of why this monster is so fantastic, his trait is anticipation. When an enemy performs a skill with an extra turn, Faraday performs an extra turn just before. So basically a monster gets an extra turn, and before he gets that extra turn, Faraday gets a turn in. So then you get to attack the enemy monster. And aside from that, status effects also have a 35% less accuracy against them. So originally I didn't even know that, I thought it was just anticipation, so that's pretty cool. But anyhow, if Faraday at level 100 was to do Gravel Strap against any level 100 monster, it would deal 6135 damage. And against a Thunder monster, it would deal 9200 damage. So not enough to kill a VoltaiK obviously, but there is the potential to land Quicksand on VoltaiK and potentially on the enemy teammates. And so then VoltaiK would get another turn in, he would attack you, get an extra turn, and then you get another turn in because of anticipation. So then you'd be able to do Clay Belt. Clay Belt is a 65 damage earth based attack. Now a level 100 Discharger with no strength runes, this is just him with his power and using Clay Belt, it would actually deal 9969 damage against any level 100 or higher monster. Against a Thunder monster, it would deal 15k damage almost. So 15k, this is with no strength runes from Clay Belt. That is pretty powerful. Keep in mind that a level 100 VoltaiK only has 24k life, and this attack Clay Belt is dealing 15k damage. That's impressive. And if Quicksand landed, if you already did your AoE 40 damage earth based attack, a level 100 VoltaiK would pretty much be dead with no strength runes needed. Now let's say you're able to get this monster up to rank 1, you get him to level 105, and you're able to use Mud Whip. Well, Mud Whip is 70 damage, so against any level 100 monster this would actually deal 12k damage with no runes. But assuming Mud Whip was used against an earth based monster, if you're level 105 and you use Mud Whip with no strength runes, you would actually deal 18,500 damage against any thunder based monster. That is a lot of damage for a monster with no strength runes, and that's because being 70 damage, you have 50% damage buff against thunder based monsters. You're essentially doing a 105 damage attack. That is crazy huge. And you have the chance to apply Quicksand and the chance to immobilize with stun. And so this is why I was saying that the earth version is specifically a Xyla and a VoltaiK killer. 18,500 damage with no strength runes. So if you manage to get a level 10, if you manage to get your hands on a level 10 strength runes and you give it to the Discharger, he's going to be dealing 37,000 damage against any level 100 thunder monster or higher. Once again, how much life does a VoltaiK have? he has 41k life at level 130. And meanwhile, I'm just talking about a level 105 Faraday with a level 10 strength rune. Not a level 110, level 115, level 120. I'm talking about a level 105 Faraday using Mud Whip with one level 10 strength rune. It can almost kill VoltaiK. And actually, I think if Quicksand was to land, you would actually kill VoltaiK. And even if Quicksand doesn't land, so what? He would do another return skill, you'd do your anticipation trait, and then you'd be able to do Gravel Strap and AoE Quicksand everyone. Or maybe AoE Sunburn if you're running that. So yeah, he's definitely the Thunder Killer, the Xyla VoltaiK killer. If you want an Earth Monster, get the Discharger for sure. I'm telling you, like, you're going to be able to take on 130 VoltaiKs just with a 105, a 110 Discharger, if you can get your hands on that high level strength rune. And even if you think, armor, no I can't get a level 10 rune, that's fine. Give him 2 high level strength runes and give him a team speed rune or a team life rune or a single speed rune. It doesn't matter. The cool thing is that he gets a churn in before the enemy VoltaiK. And another thing about like taking on VoltaiK and Xyla is that when you look at their attacks, they are not that powerful. Xyla is a bit stronger, but she only has thunder based attacks, or at least her extra turn skills are thunder based. Whereas VoltaiK, all of his skills, look at that, 50k volts, it's only 50 thunder based damage, static shocks 15 damage, 20 to residual, 20k volts 35 damage. It's not that powerful and they're thunder based. So if he was to attack you, you're not going to be taking that much damage. Electrodynamic Assault 15 damage, so you're taking very little damage, but the amount of damage you're dealing back is immense. So yeah, if you want specifically a Thunder Killer, a VoltaiK Xyla killer, I highly recommend getting the Discharger. And then just quickly, once again, because the numbers just fascinate me so much, Gravel Dust with this is Faraday with no strength runes, a level 100 Faraday. Gravel Dust would deal 9,200 against a thunder based monster. Clave Out, the 65 damage attack, would deal 15k damage against a thunder based monster. And Mud Whip, you'd have to be level 105 to get this skill. It would deal 18,500 damage against a thunder based monster. So then you can just add in a rune and be like, how strong would the skill be? Taking out a level 130 VoltaiK is not a problem anymore because of this monster. Alright, and now let's transition over to the Electrolyzer, which really, I was leaning towards this monster a lot, and now I'm not too sure. So his power is 3542, once again a great power, and then he has thunder based attacks. What I really liked about this monster was his uniqueness. So if you take a look at skills group 2 Lightning Strap, it's 60 damage, 19 stamina, 1 turn cooldown, accuracy is 100%, so you'll never miss the damage, you're always going to land it unless you're blinded or dazed or something, and he applies blind, which again will always land unless the enemy monster is hardened or some trait that reduces the likelihood of an effect landing. But this skill is awesome. It's high damage, low stamina, low cooldown, it cannot miss, that's great. And then moving over to skills group 3, Nine Tail Zap, well, once again 100 accuracy, it's an AoE 40 damage, once again low stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, that's not a lot, and it blinds everyone. Great skill. But then skills group 4 gets even better. 70 damage, 22 stamina cost, this time it does have the regular accuracy 95, but it applies total blind, and again no one is immune to total blind. And so once again, I personally think this is the best monster to dealing with churn transfer if it's not churn transfer into Xyla or Volt. So the best example I can give, because it happened to me and I won't forget it, I took on a Metalisha thinking maybe Metalisha won't do her extra churn skill. No, I was wrong. Metalisha did a churn transfer into Warthog and then Warthog killed me. Well, if I had Faraday in that scenario, Metalisha churn transfer into Warthog, Faraday gets a churn in, I can total blind Warthog, I can't stun him, I can't possess him, I can't do anything, but I can total blind him, he would attack me, it would miss, and then I'm free to kick butt the next turn, you know? I'm free to do whatever I want, Shiny Fever, Sunburn and Burning, I can do AoE blind everyone, I can do AoE Sunburn, and so that's why I really like the Electrolyzer. Now the question I'm going to answer is, can Electrolyzer take care of Xyla or Volt? And that one it really depends, because unlike the Earth counterpart, he can't one-shot an enemy with Xyla or Volt. It's just not possible. The best damage he can deal would be a 65 damage special base attack Stamina Void. And so actually a level 105 Electrolyzer with no strength runes would deal 11,142 damage against a level 100 Thunder monster, or any monster, right? It's a special based attack. So once again, if we look at VoltaiK, at level 100 he has 24k life. And so even if you give this monster a level 10 strength rune, it is not enough to one-shot the enemy VoltaiK. However, that's fine and all I think, because one strategy you could do is when VoltaiK goes and he gets his extra churn, you can do Nine Tail Zap and blind all the enemy monsters. Now the enemy VoltaiK has hardened, Xyla has Bulwark. But going back to VoltaiK, if you do Nine Tail Zap and blind everyone, if it lands on VoltaiK, well then the game is totally in your favor, because he's going to be missing a lot of his attacks, and every time he attacks he still gets an extra turn, which means you're going to get an extra turn, which means you can mess around with the enemy so much. You can do electric belts on one of the enemy monsters and total blind them, so now they don't become a threat. You can do shining fever to sunburn and burn one of the other enemy monsters, or maybe the denier, or maybe VoltaiK himself. You can do discomforting bask just to AoE sunburn everyone, or if you just want to eliminate VoltaiK, you can just do stamina void and deal a lot of damage. So if Ninetales Zap actually lands on the main monster that gives you extra turns, Xyla, Volt, or whoever, like, the game is seriously in your favor, just because you can abuse the enemy team so much. Not only are they all blinded now, you can also total blind an enemy, and then you're free to apply DOTs as many as you want. And so yeah, I think Faraday gives you a little more leeway, and he allows you to have a little more fun with the enemy team. With the Discharger, it's just, I'm gonna one-shot VoltaiK, and okay, there, you anticipated him, you killed them, now what? With Electrolyzer, you can't one-shot VoltaiK unless you run 2 Strength Runes and a Team Speed, which is totally viable if you want to one-shot VoltaiK, but why do it? Why not just try to blind VoltaiK and just use his extra turns against his team? That way you can mess with him, apply DOTs, apply a total blind. So that's why I was really leaning towards this monster. I love the 100% accuracy blind, I love the total blind, I love that VoltaiK, you can't kill him right away, but that's awesome for you, because then you can mess around with them as much as possible. But then there's another thing we need to talk about, and that's his stamina leak potential. And so I actually will talk about that a little bit more when I talk about the relics, because I think it's really worth talking about relics with this monster. But now let's talk about the dark version. And so Faraday the Obscure, it is your turn. Once again, the highest power, 3663. And let's see what this monster has for us. Somber Strap, 45 damage poison, not interesting. Sinister Bell, this is where it starts. Bleeding and poison. So first of all, bleeding lasts for 3 turns, reduces the enemy's HP by 15% and reduces their power output by 20%. And then poison reduces the enemy's HP by 10% for 4 turns and their power output by also 20%. Or I think it's actually 19% in the game, but you know what, just rounding error, whatever. So together that's minus 25% and damage output is reduced. However, this is just to one single enemy. Let's take a look at skills group 4, and we have Infamous Whip. Deals heavy dark damage to all enemies, applies bleeding to all enemies, applies poison to all enemies. So now we have an AoE version. So whereas with the other 2 versions we saw a powerful single version attack, now we have an AoE. So AoE bleeding and poison to everyone. Now the cool thing about this monster is, once again, he cannot one hits. Well, actually, you have the option with Faraday. If you only have skills group 3, yeah, Sinister Belt, you have the potential to one hit the enemy VoltaiK. Well, actually, let me see my data. I calculated that at level 100, the Obscure will deal 9,999 damage against any level 100 monster that isn't dark based. And then obviously he'll deal more against an earth based monster. So if he can deal that much damage with no strength runes, if you give him a level 10 rune, that doubles, so he's dealing a little over 20k damage, almost 20k damage, and a level 100 VoltaiK has 24k life. So you know what, unless you actually land both effects, the bleeding and the poison, even with a level 10 strength rune, a level 100 Faraday is not going to be able to kill VoltaiK, so that's unfortunate. And then even less chance against Xyla, who has more life and has the Bulwark trait, but it is possible. So that aside, that doesn't matter. The cool thing is that with Infamous Whip, once again, you're not going to kill VoltaiK, right? So if you give this monster 3 team speed, it's fine. If you give him a strength rune, it's fine. If you run him with a rainbow build, it's fine. The cool thing is you apply Infamous Whip, and now not only does VoltaiK potentially get hit with bleeding and poison, his enemies are going to get hit with bleeding and poison. And even if one effect lands, or if both effects land, it's phenomenal. But even if just one effect lands, the enemy's damage output is reduced by 1/5. So now they're dealing 4/5 of what they used to deal. And then if both lands, well, it's not additive, it doesn't stack. It's not like 40% damage reduction, but it does increase, right? It's probably like 30 or something. I still haven't calculated how that works. But yeah, so that aside, VoltaiK goes, he attacks you again. The damage output is reduced. On the next turn, you can do Discomforting Bask, which is an AoE sunburn, which reduces the enemy's HP by 10% and their accuracy by 15%. So now the enemy has sunburn, they have bleeding, they have poison. Together that's what? Minus 25, minus 35 HP for the next few turns, and minus like 30% damage reduction, minus 10% accuracy, and then probably VoltaiK still isn't dead, in which case you can do Shining Fever to give someone else burning. Maybe you can do Sinister Belt to just kill someone, or if not, you'll also apply bleeding if it's a really tanky monster. You know, you always have your stamina void skill, your stamina drain skills. So this monster is the king of DOTs. which is why against tanky monsters, he's the perfect monster to have. If you can ever pair up this monster with someone that can do trade disabled like Ingenica, he'd be phenomenal because there'd be no way for the enemy to block against all of this DLT damage, you know. And I think it is very possible to pair this monster up with Ingenica, just because, you know, if you look at enemy teams, if it's a Sammy, a VoltaiK, and then some other monster, okay, Sammy's running 3 speed, the other monster is running 3 team speed, and then VoltaiK is running strength, stamina, and team speed or single speed. Well, then your Ingenica can run 3 speed runes, your Treachery monster can run 3 team speed, and your Faraday can run 3 team speed or 2 team speed. Or yeah, you can get the advantage. So maybe you can do Ingenica 3 speed, your Treachery monster 1 speed and 2 team speed if you wanted to also deny. So a lot of potential to actually abuse his DLT potential, especially in PvP. So really liking this monster. I think I kind of skimmed over him, but once I thought more about him, once I was like, whoa, crazy DLT for days, right? Bleeding, poison, sunburn, an extra burning here. Crazy stuff this monster can do. Faraday the Obscure, he's the strongest, but he has a lot of DLT damage. And not to mention, this monster is definitely an earth killer. Pairing Nemesis monsters against Nemesis monsters, Warthog against Faraday the Obscure, Warthog is dead. It's just so much DLT damage, it makes him completely weak. Oh my gosh, again, this monster is phenomenal. And so I think if you're deciding on a monster, it really gets summarized to what do you want in the monster. If you want a monster to take on tanky monsters, if you're an elite player that takes on a lot of 130s with level 10 life runes, the Obscure might be the monster for you. If you want specifically someone to deal with VoltaiK and Xyla, if you're a relatively new player and you're fighting a lot of ranked up VoltaiKs and you're so frustrated with them that you can't beat them, pick up the Discharger. You're going to have no problem taking them down. Once again, I showed you the math. A 105 Discharger with a level 10 strength rune has no problem killing a 130 VoltaiK, and it's probably the same for Xyla. And I haven't even talked about relics. And then Electrolyzer, if you had a problem with turn transfer monsters, Sammy, turn transferring into someone that's not Xyla or Volt, he might be the one for you. He's the cheapest and he's phenomenal too. And with that said, let's bring it back to relics. This monster can hold 2 relics, a trap relic and a sword relic. And the cool thing about those relics is that he has skills that can drain stamina. A stamina void, for example, 65 damage, 25 stamina, 1 turn cooldown, drains 30% stamina and applies stamina leak. In skills group 2 he has stamina expel, 50 damage, 25 stamina cost, removes 35 stamina. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because it is 0 cooldown and there are so many monsters with cooldowns activated. So you never know, right? It's better to be safe than sorry, especially when we have a bunch of skills to choose from. And so anyhow, let's take a look at relics, and we should start with trap relics. And so if you're starting the game off, you probably have bronze, maybe a few silver, maybe not so much gold and diamond. So let's see what potential bronze relics you can use on this monster. When the turn ends, if an enemy is frozen, you can't use that. After being hit, if attacker stamina is above 75%, you could use that because that first time VoltaiK hits you, he's going to have above 75% stamina. And what do? You remove 20 points of stamina at level 1. You can potentially rank this up to, like, let's say 10. You can remove 34 points of stamina. You're thinking it's not a lot, but it's something. It's better than nothing. Energy Trap, when the turn ends, if an enemy stamina is below 25, removes 20 points of stamina from it. So once again, if you do this to like level 10, removes 34 points of stamina. You might be thinking, armor, it's not a lot, it's not useful. Once again, you never know, because if we look at Stamina Void, this drains 30% of stamina and applies stamina leak. And so I think it's definitely possible for you to get in a position where you're attacking Xyla and Volt, and even if you can't kill them, even if you don't have the best runes to kill them, you can make it so they run out of stamina fast. So you can definitely utilize those relics. And take a look at this relic right here, Punisher Trap. For those of you getting the Earth version, when the turn ends, if an enemy is stunned, removes 20 points of stamina from it. Once again, like, of course you can rank this up all the way to 25, in which case you remove 60 points of stamina, but assuming you can't do that yet, you're starting off, let's do 10, we can do even 15, removes 42 points of stamina. This can definitely work wonders for you. If you're not only stunning, but draining stamina, and then on the next turn drain some more stamina, it is a great way to mobilize an enemy monster. Let's see what you can use in terms of silver relics. When revived, you probably won't use that too much. At the start of the battle, decrease all enemies' maximum life by 1,485 points for 2 turns. That is significant. That is very significant. Let's say you get it up to level 10, that's 2,000. If you're able to max it out, it'd be so powerful. 5,800. You might be thinking, that's not a lot armor. It actually is, because let's take a look at VoltaiK again. At level 100, he has 24k life. What did this do? 5,800. So keep in mind that Obscure and the original version, the Electrolyzer, they can't one-hit VoltaiK or Xyla with a level 10 rune even at level 100. But if you have a Pestilence Trap and you're able to decrease their max life at the very start of the battle, then you actually can take them out in one shot. So that's pretty cool. So you can utilize a relic to help you take out the enemy VoltaiK, Xyla, whoever. So Pestilence Trap may be a viable option for you. Spirit's Trap if the enemy is possessed, that's not important. And then if you happen to have the gold or the diamond, let's see. When the trend starts, that's not important. After being hit, that's not that important. After being hit, if worse life, not important. So if you have this monster, you're probably going to be utilizing one of the bronze relics, or the Pestilence Trap, the silver relic. Or if you do happen to have these, I know I skipped over these really fast, but at the same time they also are quite significant because, you know, it is possible for you to get hit where you do drop, depending on what attack they do. If the enemy Xyla and VoltaiK just keep targeting you, it is very possible for your HP to drop below 50%, in which case this can activate, and then suddenly all of the enemy monster will lose 40 points of stamina. Or Tiger Trap, this actually deals 5,700 points of light damage to the attacker, so just making it easier to kill Xyla or Volt. But with that said, now let's take a look at the swords. Once again, target is burning, not important. Nightmares, not important. Oh, take a look at this for those of you that get the dark version. If target is bleeding, removes 12 points of stamina from affected enemy. So let's say you get it to 10, that's 20 points of stamina. Let's say you bump it up to 25. Actually, you really shouldn't, so let's keep it at 10. Removes 20 points of stamina. Not too much, not a lot, but it's better than nothing. You might as well use it if you're starting off. If you have better relics, then obviously don't, and there actually is a really great gold one for those of you that get this monster. So let's scroll down. Earth Shacking Sword. After hitting, if target is stunned, deals 565 points of earth damage. So this one is a little better, especially because it's earth-based damage against the Xyla or Volt, which are thunder-based, so you get the elemental advantage. This is 800, so 50% stronger. That's an extra 1,000 points. It gets 2 uses. So again, it helps you deal that extra amount of damage you need to take out Xyla or Volt. Let's see what this is at 20. 1,300, so 50% more. That's 2,000 extra points of damage. You can do it twice. That's 4,000 points. So it could work. I'm not saying they're the best, but it could work. And then if you have either the gold relics, the gold sword relics, after hitting, if target is frozen or stunned. So specifically, if you have the earth version, this one right here at level 1 gives you a 9,600 points of armor and physical protection. 2 uses. So if you stun one enemy monster, you give yourself a shield. This is at level 1. Let's see level 10. 12,000 points of armor. That is great. I think this is another argument for getting the earth version since he's the one that can stun. Or if you have this one, after hitting, if target is stunned, removes 24 points of stamina. Let's see it at level 10. Now it removes 40 points of stamina. This is a really convincing point in terms of relics for purchasing the earth version. I really like this one, especially if you're not going to run a life rune on your monster. And especially if you're taking on a 130 VoltaiK, who might hit you hard in the face, you know? Because still, 130 VoltaiK against a level 100, level 105 Nemesis monster, sure you have a high life and all, but it's still going to hurt. And then lastly, Jakugan Sword. After hitting, if target's life is below 50%, deals 3,435 points of physical damage to all enemies. So considering you can, especially if you have the earth version, once again, you can one-shot VoltaiK, or even if you don't manage to one-shot him, if you come really close to killing him, I mean heck, you're definitely gonna hit him below 50% of life. You're also damaging everyone else. Let's see, 4,000 points of physical damage to all of the enemy monsters. So, you know, you can utilize relics, you can definitely utilize some stamina drain. They're not the best, but they can still definitely be utilized, especially if you're just starting off the game and you don't have a lot of other relics to access. But I mean, he can only hold traps and swords, so this is really what you have to utilize. And so I think I've said enough. I'm really just quickly going to go over skill sets and what I would possibly use for each version. And this is so difficult because there are 4 skills grouped, and there are good skills in skills group 2 and skills group 3 and skills group 4. So plenty of skills to choose from, but just really quickly. For the earth version, for the discharger, I think the skill set I would do for sure would be Mud Whip, Clay Belts, and then this is where it gets complicated. I originally wanted Gravel Strap, but I'm thinking since it's Comforting Bask, essentially it does the same, it's just a different element. I love the fact that Sunburn reduces the enemy's accuracy, and any chance that the enemy has to miss, I love that, so I'm going to take advantage of that. Yeah, Quicksand is a stronger DOT, taking away 15% HP, whereas Sunburn only does 10%, but I'm fine with that. I just love that minus accuracy. My opinion may change, but right now I think I'm going with this Comforting Bask, Clay Belts, Mud Whip, and again, it's really hard. Do I want Stamina Void? Do I want Shining Fever? I don't really know. I originally said Stamina Void, but now I'm thinking Shining Fever. I don't know. I also want all 3 of them. So I guess I'm just gonna tell you guys the for sure skills, and the for sure skill is Mud Whip. That's what I can say for sure. And then you know what, I might forego Clay Belt, but then I like Clay Belt because I can potentially stun another enemy monster. See, it's super hard. This is supposed to be like really fast, but I don't even know. Mud Whip is just the for sure skill. And then, you know, Shining Fever and Stamina Void, all of the versions have it. Are they worth it? Shining Fever, Sunburn, and Burning, that's an extra 30%. 55 Thunder base that can give me an advantage against water monsters, and this will give me the potential to even one-shot water monsters, especially if I'm going to give this monster a level 10 strength rune, which I probably will if I get this monster. So maybe I should do Shining Fever, Mud Whip, and then Stamina Void. Actually yes, you don't need Stamina Void on the Earth version, just because Mud Whip gives you the capability to one-shot enemy thunder monsters, so you don't need that special base damage. So you don't need Stamina Void. Do Mud Whip, Shining Fever, Clay Belt, and then Discomforting Bask. That would be the skill set for the Earth version. And as for the Dark version, for the Obscure, let's see what we have for him. For the Obscure, I would do Infamous Whip for sure, Discomforting Bask for sure, Sinister Belt, and as for the last skill, it would probably have to be, this is where it gets complicated, it would probably have to be, because you can make the argument, once again, you don't need Stamina Void because you have Sinister Belt, but at the same time, but then this does Burning and Sunburn, I just don't know. It might be Stamina Void. Let me know in the comments below which of these two skills would you choose, or if you think my skill set is completely wrong, please let me know in the comments below. But for sure do Infamous Whip, Discomforting Bask, and Sinister Belts. And then for the most unique and cheapest of them all, the Electrolyzer, the skill set for him would be, let's see what we have for him. For sure run Electric Belt, and for sure run Ninetales Zap. And because this is a Thunder version, you need special base attacks, you need Stamina Void. So those are all must-haves. Ninetales Zap, Stamina Void, Electric Belt, and as for the last and final skill, well, it's either going to be Discomforting Bask or Shining Fever. You can make the argument for Lightning Strap because it is single based and it is quite strong, but I think you're better off going with the AoE Sunburn or Shining Fever, the Sunburn and Burning. And as for the runes on this monster, I just need to emphasize that you do not need a Stamina rune. I'm going to emphasize that you do not need a Stamina rune. People were saying that because he gets so many extra turns. No, he's really not going to be getting that many extra turns unless you allow VoltaiK and Xyla to live, which you probably don't want to do for that long. You know, the Electrolyzer, like I mentioned, he can mess around with the enemy. If you land that blind on VoltaiK, yeah, let him try to hit you a few times. He's blinded, he can't hurt you, go for it. But if you're not blinding the enemy Xyla or Volt, you want to eliminate them as soon as possible, because if they have high level runes, they can still kick your butt. So with the Thunder version, and actually even the Dark version, since he applies DOTs, since he reduces damage output, you can play around. You can do 3 team speed with the Thunder version and the Dark version. For the Earth version, I would highly recommend going 2 team speed and a strength, or if you don't have a high level strength rune, do 2 strength and a team speed. Or really that third rune, it can be anything you want. It can be a team life if you want. If you're really scared of VoltaiK or Xyla taking out your teammates, because if they're ranked up, if they have high level runes. So that's what you want. You just want to make sure you can one-shot Xyla or Volt. And so that's usually going to be a level 10 strength rune, and then the other runes don't matter. But the Earth one specifically, make sure you have that high level strength rune, or if not 2 strength runes, and you're solid. The last rune, do whatever. Typically team speed to help your denier to help your other monster go. As for the Thunder and the Dark ones, you can get away with 3 team speed. I would recommend that. You could also do 2 team speed and a strength if you also want them to deal some damage. You can rainbow rune them, you can do life, you can do speed or team speed, you can do strength. So many options, but typically for the most part you want to do the 3 team speed setup or the 2 team speed, 1 strength. And once again, I think I emphasized this already, do not do a Stamina rune. You do not need a Stamina rune on this monster. You do not need it. Okay, and I really hope I was able to help you guys decide which monster to pick. I know this was an extremely long video. I really had to get in depth with each monster, and this monster, he's so phenomenal. He's not like Sammy, like Lum, but he's just the fact that he counters one of the top tier monsters in the game. The top tier monsters in the game, really all the monsters, you know, any monster with an extra turn skill, you know, there's so many we don't even talk about now. Barbatos, Scrap Warrior, Barakor, all of those monsters I just mentioned, Faraday just trumps them too. If you ever see them on defense, you're like, you know what, maybe they'll do the extra turn skill, let me just bring my Faraday and just whoop their butts. So yeah, he trumps on them. He makes VoltaiK cry in the corner, he makes Xyla cry in the corner, he makes turn transfer monsters cry in the corner. He's a great fantastic monster. If you ever wanted to invest money in the game, I think this would be just about as any good as time as ever, so go for it. With that being said, I really hope I was able to help you guys. If you're going to be purchasing a Faraday, let me know which one you're going to be purchasing in the comments below. Let me know what skill set you're going to be running, what runes you're going to be running, what's the team you're going to plan to use them in, If you're going to put him on defense, what's going to be your defense team? I just want to know everything that has to do with this monster, so let me know in the comments below. With that being said, best of luck to all of you in your Monster Legends adventures, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.